we begin with another important segment. From a former CIA officer from the Central Intelligence Agency. Not, we're going back to off the grid, baby, and we're going to talk about some stuff that is fun. As you know from the previous program, I gave the reasons why I moved off the grid, and my wife and I built this entire off-the-grid farm ourselves and are now living outside the matrix and outside of the system, which allows me to come out freely and speak the way I do and expose the things that I do because we are completely financially and otherwise off the grid. So that's what I want to talk to you all about, leaving the matrix and going off the grid. One piece at a time. You can start this in an apartment at your house or buy a piece of land somewhere, which would be the best thing to do. Save up and buy a piece of land and then just start building your little prepper farm there on the weekends or when you have time. Take your weekends and go do that. That's what we did until we moved here fully. So that's one way you can do it. So let's get into this. Let's talk about what I want to cover today, and that is the composting toilet. Now, this is a picture of the inside of the composting toilet. I'll go through this in detail as we go on. And what I want to try to do is give you all, and this is for our Tier 2 sponsors. So I welcome everybody there. You're a special group of people to me, and it's going to be fun as we go through all these series. And it's a nice diversion. Okay, this is the inside of the composting toilet. I'd never done any carpentry before on my own, period. And as I mentioned in the previous program, I just looked at every YouTube video I could get my hands on building a structure. This essentially is a little tiny house, a little room. And there's a lot of good books out there. The one I found the best was Building Your Own Shed. It showed how to build basically a relatively large shed, which was a tiny house, essentially in terms of framing. So that's the book I used to teach myself how to do this. So you can do it. Now, I did all this because we didn't want anybody calling our bathroom an outhouse. It is not an outhouse. It is a composting bathroom. And I can guarantee you there's no moon on the front door. So we wanted this to be a real bathroom. Now, we have a bathroom on the inside of the house. I'll be doing a program where we show you what we did on the inside of the house, how we put the shower in, the sinks, the kitchen, and on and on and on. And that one should be fun too. Today, we're going to talk about the composting toilet. And this is available only for my Patreon sponsors, as the rest of these series will be. So welcome aboard, and let's get going. Now, I have a video here, and I'll talk about each segment of this regarding the building itself. This is the composting bathroom here, and it's a view from the outside, and I want to get into kind of the basic construction of this thing. So let's let the video play, and I'll focus in on some areas that I kind of want to let you guys know about. The first of which is the foundation. Now, I chose to do this foundation using these foundation blocks that you can get at Lowe's or any Home Depot. And then you put a 4x4 post in them. And the great thing about these are you can build anything on a slope or any uneven ground, and you don't have to level the ground first. You can see this ground is sloping. So you put the 4x4 posts in, you put your framing around the posts, and you make sure that the posts themselves are level, and therefore your floor frame itself will be level too, irregardless of whether you have a slope or not. So that's what I did here. Now, let me mention something I learned from the chicken coop. We did a chicken coop show. It is so important when you do your floor framing, the outside framing of the entire structure, that you square that frame. I cannot tell you how important that is. A good friend of mine and master at building has been living on his farm for years. J. Bird Williamson taught me how to do this because I knew nothing. Square your frame by measuring from one corner to the other, and then measuring from the other corner to the other corner, and those two measurements have to match. and the rest of your construction will be fine. If those don't match, it's going to be a mess from that point forward. All righty, so that's the foundation, and you can see that I used 1x6 treated boards to make the foundation frame here. But what I want to focus in here is how the foundation was built, because that is so important that we know how that was done. Some more of the frame here. Take a good look at that, especially those little pedestal blocks there. And I put the sloping roof on the top and connected it to our, that I will probably paint that Rust-Oleum brown eventually. But you can see where it leads into, I also built that porch there too, and we'll show you a little bit of that later. But this is the outside of the bathroom. Let me pause it just for a moment. Now, I built the walls of this thing with basic framing of a wall, like you would a little tiny house. And then I put plywood over the frame, and then put this tin over the plywood. Now, the tin is great. It's very, very thin tin. It's great because it takes no maintenance at all. It's not going to fade out over time. You're not going to have to retreat it. It'll last for a long, long time, and that's why I did that. And I have all of the outside tin matching for all of the buildings that I built. So just a note there. I'll talk about this window a little later. That's the first window I ever put in. And once again, I got that from a do-it-yourself small house building book. They're available online on Amazon anywhere. You can read those, and it shows you how to put in a window, and it's not that difficult. What I would do for every single one of these buildings was my wife and I would sit there at night with no TV. Now we have fiber optic cable now, and we're able to watch, able to connect into the internet. That's why I'm doing this. But originally we had no TV, no nothing, so we would sit there in the evenings and just draw out the plans of what we were going to do. So I would study these books, this one on framing, for example, and then plan the measurements of how I was going to build it the next day, and eventually put in my first window. So let's keep going. All right, I want to go back just for a second because make sure I've covered everything there. Let's see here. I think I have. Yeah, we're good. Let's keep going, folks. Now, this I'm showing the outside back of the building. You can see I covered it all with tin. Very easy to do. You can buy this tin very inexpensively. Well, how did I do it? Well, I looked at other tin buildings that were covered with tin this way and just copied what they did on that building, including the tin bolts and everything. So that's how we got this thing covered. So this is the rear of the composting bathroom. And I want to focus in especially on one part. Yeah, I apologize, the gimbal wasn't working real good this day, so it shakes a little bit. But what I want to talk about is the exhaust pipe at the top. So stand by and let this thing get focused right there. Now, that's your exhaust pipe. How important is that? That comes up from the composting toilet, and I'll show you how that connects in a little bit. That comes up all the way from the composting toilet and vents out the, as a friend of mine would say, stank from the bathroom. So you don't smell anything at all in the bathroom itself. This is a PVC pipe, and you can see I put a PVC T-pipe on top of it so that the odor can go out both ends of that pipe, and especially that makes it rain-proof so the rain doesn't get down in the pipe, and it has two avenues to ventilate the air. Now, what's also important about this, of course, is I put screens over each end of the pipe for obvious reasons. Flies would get in there, they'd get down in there and they'd lay eggs, and that is disgusting. So I have put screening, metal screening over each end of the pipe, and then clamped it down with a hose gasket. You can do all of this yourself, very easy. You can I go to Lowe's. All we have here is a Lowe's somewhere deep in the southern United States. When you have to drive into town, Lowe's has all of this, everything that you need, and Home Depot too, also. So I put this screen over the pipes for those reasons. Now you notice I painted the pipe black. You paint the pipe black because you want it to get hot, really hot up there. And what that heat does is it draws the air even further up from the composting toilet below. As the sun hits the black pipe, it heats up, and then it draws air up, and it works really, really well. All right. Now let's continue on here. The compost door. Now, again, I just drew this all up myself. You can do this. Just sit down with a pad of paper and a pen and just draw it out, draw the dimensions out. I hope that these videos will help you. I wasn't able to film this while I was building it, although I have some still shots that I may show later on. But you can do this. Anybody can do this. And that's the point I want to get across. This is not that difficult. You just need to watch YouTubes and study. And then once you start doing it, remember one thing, you are going to make mistakes. And I have to admit, I dropped a few F-bombs along the way. So don't worry about those. Some mistakes we call character, but you're going to make mistakes. So just know that going into it, and you'll learn how to correct them. And you learn this as you go, as I did. So this is the back of the composting toilet. This is the door where I remove the composted poop from inside, and it is covered with peat moss and is breaking down to soil. And I'll show you more about that in a moment. So let's take a look at this. I had a simple latch I got from Lowe's, hinges and everything. I built a little door, as you can see. Now, when you open it up, first let me mention that that is not poop on the outside of that bin. Okay, my wife wanted me to get that straight. That's an old bin. It's been reused and reused and reused and reused, and I think that's glue down at the bottom right. So it's just an old bin. That's not stuff on the outside of it. So that'll make my wife happy. All right. So you can see here. Now look at this. You get a bin, as I did, from Lowe's, and you drill holes in the end of the bin near where the composting toilet vent pipe is. So you can see I drilled those holes so that the odor will go through those holes. Look to the right, that is the composting vent pipe going down into the compost bin. And you can see that I cut out about half of the pipe down there to allow more air to flow from those holes up into the pipe and ultimately up through the top of the vent pipe. So, and it's worked very, very well for us. Now, I want to mention something too. People who have RVs have experienced this. They get what are called sewer flies in their toilets in their RVs. They come out of nowhere. And that happened to us at first. We started getting sewer flies in our compost bin, even though we were covering it with peat moss, and they're just a nuisance. They came out of nowhere. We're way out in the woods. But what I learned is before you start using this bin, when it's empty, you spray the entire bin with neem oil. And neem oil is organic, it's very safe, and it kills bugs very, very well organically. You can get neem oil online. A lot of stores don't carry it. Lowe's doesn't carry it. So go online and get yourself some neem oil. Since we've been using that, we haven't seen a sewer fly since. Stuff is great. So this is what it looks like, the compost bin from the outside and how it's built. Now, you can, if you want, put a computer fan, one of the ventilation fans from a piece or a computer tower, for example. I'm sorry. You take the fan out of an old computer tower and you can put it up inside the vent pipe you see here. You put it in there up just above where we can see there. The little fan up inside that pipe will help draw the air out even more. And then you'll have to run the electric wire to a small battery or something. A lot of people do that. We don't need to because we don't have any odor at all. But that's something you can do. You can use from an old computer tower. Just take out the fan, wire it up to a small battery, and put it up in there. If you have any problems with odor at all, that'll get rid of it. All righty, let's keep going. And no problem with varmints, of course, because the thing's pretty well sealed up. So let's close her up. Lock her down, and she's good to go. All righty, so that's the composting door. And you can go back, guys, and replay this as much as you want to kind of look at it, relook at it, relook at it, and hear the things that I'm saying to you again. This is just the advice from your humble off-the-grid farmer that I hope helps you guys eventually break out of the quote-unquote system, or the great analogy of the Matrix. All right, let's go. Now, yep. Now I want to show you the inside of this composting bathroom and see how I did it and what I built in there. This, of course, you'll see in subsequent films that when I started clearing the land for our off-the-grid tiny house, which you'll get a kick out of, there were vines like this. It was like a jungle. I had to cut down the trees, cut out the vines. So what I did was I used the vines for ornamental purposes. In this case, I took one of the vines and I made it into a door handle. Pretty easy to do. And by the way, this is the first door I ever made. Excuse me, the first door was the chicken coop. I'm sorry. Then the second door was this one. So I had to learn how to make doors. And like anything else, it's simple. And everything gets easier when you start actually doing it. Once you do it, you get into it, and it's really kind of hard to stop. So let's look at this. Use the same latch from Lowe's. Got a latch at the bottom too when we were out of town. Okay, here you can see I put some ornamental. That is a piece of wood that we found down by the little creek, as are those you see in front of you. And we took those pieces of wood and we shellacked them and turned them into ornamental stuff. Same with that. That came down by the little creek. That's the composting toilet right there. Now, essentially what that is, I'm using 2x4s. I built a very solid box out of 2x4s, and you can literally stand obviously on top of that thing. So if we get a 300-pound guest, no problem, as long as they can fit through the door. But that's where the toilet is and what it looks like. And you can see to the left there, the vent pipe going up, which I've covered with 1x6s, piece of cake. And in that case, I used the pneumatic stapler. Just get a staple gun. Man, a staple gun can do all kinds of things. And I used a staple gun to make that vent pipe cover. Okay, let's keep going. You can see I just made that go all the way to the ceiling, so it looks nicer than just the pipe. You don't need this, but makes it look better. Part of the log that I used for the sink, I cut pieces off and we made these for the wall. And there you can see where the toilet paper is. It's hidden under an old piece of wood. A lot of things that we got from just laying around, big piles of old wood and things like that. Some things we got at yard sales, and we tried to be as frugal as we could with a lot of things. The pine, tongue and groove pine came from a local mill with local trees. So I tried to do everything locally and everything from the ground. And I guess it's the old Frank Lloyd Wright kind of philosophy where you try to build out of your surrounding resources where you are, out in the woods or wherever. So that is where the toilet roll is, and it's concealed. If you stand up, you can't even see that it's there. Now, in hot summer days like we're having right now, this is a little fan that we found. Pretty cool. You turn this thing on full, and even in a hot summer, you're completely cool when you're doing your business inside the bathroom here. They're very inexpensive. You can find them on Amazon. That's where we found this one. And it keeps you cool while you're occupying the building. As I said, it works very, very well. Now the window. I built this window at the exact height of my wife, because I do pretty much everything for her. And I built it, if you're sitting on the throne doing your business, you're looking at this window at exactly the right height, so you can see the birds in the bird feeders, hummingbirds in the hummingbird feeders, dragonflies flying around in the water. We have sprinklers on. You can see I have woodpecker food way off there on the tree. And it's pretty cool as you're sitting there, especially if it's a long-term effort. You can sit there and just watch nature as you're doing your business. So that window was put there at that exact height for that purpose. Oops, we're gonna have to probably go through this again. Stand by. Okay, let's, I guess it won't let me go back. So let's just watch through this again. I'll get to the sink here in a moment. Now, we just made this all up. We sat there at night and drew out what we were going to do and then did it. Tongue and groove is very easy to put up if you have a nail gun. Very easy. All right. Hopefully we can pause this and it'll keep going where it's supposed to. Roof, all tongue and groove. Oh, and I have to mention too that in between the studs, I insulated this building before I put the tongue and groove up. So it stays cool in the summer with that fan, and it stays warm in the winter where we have a little heater sitting there. So the walls are insulated. Good, it's gonna keep going. All right. Little flower my wife put there, and a little sprouter where we sprout some plants. Little copper trash can, of course. The fan we just talked about. And of course the viewing window. All right, then we move on. And of course, I put a mirror in. We found this mirror at Hobby Lobby, which we love Hobby Lobby. There's another shot of the fan there if you want to order one like that eventually. And this mirror we found at Hobby Lobby. Now, I'll tell you, we have found so many things at Hobby Lobby that are so cool for building things like this. If you haven't been there, you've got to go. So this is the shot of the sink with the running water. Those 3 pieces of wood hanging down there, ornamental wood, we found those down at the creek. Golly, they've probably been there under the stream, which dries up in the summer, for 80 years plus. So you can see that the stream during heavy rain months has literally hewn these pieces of wood down to almost look like flames over the years. So we took them and we hung them there as ornaments. Same applies with this. This is just an old piece of wood we found laying down in the woods. We brought it up and we shellacked it really, really strongly so that it preserved it. That's an old piece of cedar wood that it's sitting on. To the left, you can see the coat rack. I made that coat rack out of a vine. I just cut the vine and then cut the vine in half. That's half of one of the vines that I removed from the property here. And of course, for hanging your bathrobe, your coat on, or whatever. Okay, the sink. You can see that the sink sits on a log. Now that's an old log. They were clearing wood around here, and in this case, it was hardwood. They were harvesting hardwood, and they left the old pieces that had rotted through the core. So we found this log. It was rotted, so it was hollow in the core, and I sanded it, touched it up, and then shellacked it, and used that to set the sink on and run the PVC plumbing pipe through. We got this, the sink we got online. It wasn't that expensive at all, but we wanted to kind of brighten up the composting bathroom a little with this blue sink. Beautiful sink. I plumbed the plumbing up to this faucet here, which we got online, and all this, you can find all of this online, every single piece of it. And that's how I made the sink. You can see the log there. It's an old oak tree that had since died. You can see all the worm squibbles on there and things, which is kind of cool. And that little stand down there with the water pot on it, that is the first wood thing I ever made. When we first came out here, and this was a jungle, I made that for my wife. It's made out of a tree that her daddy was a farmer, golly, probably 60, 70 years ago now, was a farmer that had put up fencing for his pigs, and the fencing went through this tree. If you look closely behind the pot there, the fencing is still embedded in that tree. So I made this for my wife. It's the first thing I ever made out of wood. All right, so there she blows. The floor. Now, I thought of doing tiling, but we decided that it wasn't necessary in this bathroom. We, frankly, at Lowe's and Home Depot, we couldn't find the color of tile we were looking for that blended in with the rest of the bathroom. So this is linoleum tile made to look like it's slate, and it worked out beautifully. We had a good friend of ours, Merv Greenberg, who is a master tile maker, put this down for us. And Merv is one of our closest friends. He's a Messianic Jew. Wonderful man, one of our best buddies. So shout out to Merv Greenberg. He also is an expert. His main expertise is bonsai trees. So if you Google Merv Greenberg, you'll see his whole bonsai collection. It's pretty cool. All right, on we go. Okay, and we've got a little shelf here with baskets to put our towels and toilet paper and things in. That drill piece to the right, just to mention, um, uh, was my dad's. My dad passed away this year, and he left that to me. I made a lamp out of it for him. But this is an old oil well drill bit that Dad and company used to drill down in the wells of Wyoming almost 100 years ago. So I took it and I put it there as a bookmark. The other little piece of rock came from the trout streams in Asheville, North Carolina, and there's another piece of wood that came from the little stream down there. So everything we do, we try to make a memory, and we try to use things that have memories all throughout our house, and you'll see that as we go along in future programs. These baskets just come in really handy. This is the neatest little shelf because you can pull these out, hand towels, toilet paper. Now let's focus on this. See if we can go back a little bit. I don't think we can. Now let's just go from here. What you see there in that copper pot is peat moss. Now, when you've done your business, you take a scoop of this peat moss there and you just sprinkle it over the doo-doo. And it covers any smell, and begins breaking down into soil. So that is our peat moss container there. And that's what we use to actually make the soil itself. Very important when you build a composting toilet. And this is important to me because way back when I was a biologist, my undergrad degree is in biology, and I had a class where the professor went into living off nature and composting toilets. I think it was called the Clivus Multrum composting toilet, and he went through how it worked and how off the grid it was and how safe to the environment. And I remember back then thinking, man, someday I want to build one of those. Well, someday has arrived. It's amazing how things work out. But this is very important. This is a urine separating composting toilet seat. They're available online. You can find them. Make sure it is this type. What this does is when you sit down to do your business, it separates the urine from the poop, so that the poop remains dry for composting. The urine goes down into a little container. Urine is sterile. It goes down into a little container where you can dispose of it from there. So it is so important with a composting toilet that you get a urine separating toilet because it works magnificently, and it's the only way it's going to work if you're going to make soil out of poop, whatever. Okay. Just keep going here. We'll pan up a little bit, and just one final view as we close out this part. And this is everybody kind of has their Mona Lisa, the thing that they built, is kind of their piece of art. Well, this would be my Mona Lisa right here. All right, great. So everyone, as I mentioned in the last program, how do you build an off-the-grid farm? We've gone through the chicken coop. Now we've gone through the composting bathroom. I'll be showing you a lot more. I'll show you how I built the Ascent Studio with all of the lighting and everything else. I built that whole building inside and out myself, the inside of the building. I'll show you how we got the building also, the external building. So we'll talk about the Ascent Studio. I'll show you that. Now I'm only showing this stuff to Patreon sponsors at Tier 2. No one else sees this. It's not going to be on YouTube or anywhere else because this is personal stuff. But I want to share it with our Patreon family. So we'll be talking about the studio, how I built it, and how that operates for any of you out there that someday want to have your own little studio to begin producing your own videos. Anybody can do it. So one bite at a time. How do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. So you start planning. You do things one piece at a time. and before you know it, you have a whole farm. It took us a pretty intensive 2 years. We were both working in Jacksonville, Florida. I was teaching at a college, and my wife, Sue, was a program manager for a big IT company. And so we would come here on weekends when the place was just jungle, and we'd clean it out. Then we put the building on there. We'd come on weekends, and we would start building different parts. We literally started out taking baths out of buckets of water heated with propane and cooking over a stone fireplace that I built. So it's kind of like camping out, but it was fun. Then we put up the building. We lived in a shell for a while as we were building the farm. And then in our second year, we moved here full time and then really started intensively building. So it took us starting off the first year and a half, 2 years coming on weekends, and then the last year living on site the entire time. And I would recommend, if you get yourself a piece of land to do this on, go, if you have to take a tent or a camper or something, go camp on that piece of land and plan. As a matter of fact, I'd recommend, if you can, you move there and start building while you're there, because there's a lot of things about that piece of land that you're not going to know. For example, the soil. You're going to have to take a soil sample. A lot of soil needs to be amended if it's too acidic or if it's too alkaline. There's a lot of things like that. As you're building, you'll find every single time we built something, we found and corrected our mistakes. We learned as we went. So first of all, I'd highly recommend, even if you live in an apartment, go find yourself a little piece of land way off somewhere in the south or something. Buy that piece of land. That's your dream. That's your vision. Land is pretty cheap down in the southeastern United States these days. And then that could be your dream. And it's really, really fun to go there on weekends and work on your off-the-grid farm. That's what we did. And it was our dream. It was our vision, and it's become a reality. So that's it for today, everybody. I hope you got some things out of this and learned some things. Perhaps you're getting a vision to go off the grid yourself. I think it's important for everybody to consider that, because, as I mentioned in the last show, we're facing a bit of a financial crisis that is coming. Can't say exactly when, but the debt bubble in the United States and globally is going to burst. We don't want to be a Chicken Little and, live your life, be happy, enjoy things, but just plan ahead. Be prepared for what could and will eventually come down. Some are projecting 2025. No one, even these financial experts, nobody knows, but 2025, the debt in the United States will have reached $30 trillion and will be impossible to pay off. So, but make this fun, make this a dream, make this a vision. That's what we did. And now it's the love of our life. So thanks, everyone. Thanks for tuning in, and we will see you on the next Off the Grid program.